I'm with David Parsons from the International Christian Embassy here in Jerusalem. Now, David, what is the Christian Embassy?
Well, we are a worldwide organization based at our headquarters here in Jerusalem with branches, representatives in about 80 countries and reach into 125 countries that we seek to represent Christians all over the world who have a heart and a love and concern for Israel and the Jewish people, unlike past Christian generations, the whole tragic history of Christian anti-Semitism. There's a whole unprecedented move of God in our day where he's touching hearts and lives for Israel, for what she's going through here, trying to struggle to keep her existence here in the Middle East. And we have support from all over the world, and it's not just in North America and the U.S., but it's in Europe, it's in Africa, Asia, Latin America, all over the world.
And how was the Christian Embassy established?
We were founded in 1980 after the Knesset, Israel's parliament, had passed what was called the Jerusalem Law, where they declared East and West Jerusalem a reunited city, the capital of Israel forever, and this enraged the nations. Jerusalem's a burdensome stone, a cup of trembling, and there was a Arab oil embargo threat against any country that still had its embassy in Jerusalem. There were 13 countries at the time, most from Latin America, plus Holland from Europe. They headed for Tel Aviv to join the U.S., the UK, and all the other 50-some embassies down there. And at the end of the day, there was not one nation willing to stand with the 3,000-year-old Jewish claim and connection to this city. So there were Christians gathering at that moment. Israel felt isolated, Christians coming up to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles for the first time in modern times. This is of the three pilgrimage feasts that God gave the Jewish people. This is the one in the fall that the nations are abiding to. And these Christians from about 40 countries that came that first year said, look, if our nations aren't going to represent us here, we'll have to represent ourselves. So we were founded at the first Christian public celebration of the Feast of Tabernacles in 1980.
And what do you do here in the land of Israel?
We have social assistance, humanitarian aid work throughout the land, all the way in the Bible they say from Dan to Beersheba, and today it's from Metula down to Eilat. There's hardly a community in the land that hasn't been touched in some way by our assistance. We just co-funded a therapeutic swimming pool, state-of-the-art, down in Ashkelon that serves all the handicapped children of the Negev. We built community centers for elderly folks that now even have youth choirs that operate out of these centers. So it's, trying to touch all the people of the land, whether they're Jew or Arab or Muslim, Bedouin, whatever, the Druze people, because we understand God loves all men, but we also know that we respect the election of God over Israel, and therefore are primarily a ministry of comfort to Israel and the Jewish people.
Now, I know that you've been trying to comfort Sudanese people who have also been coming into the land. What's been happening there? What's the story?
Well, there have been around 6,000 or 7,000 Africans illegally coming across the border from Egypt, many coming across from Cairo. Around 2,000, 3,000 of these have been Sudanese, and the government has decided to help take care of the Darfur refugees, about 600. This leaves around 2,500 South Sudanese Christians who have been facing a much longer conflict than the genocide and ethnic cleansing in Darfur. In South Sudan, there's been over 2 million dead in the last 15 years or so of fighting. And they've got a tentative and very shaky peace treaty right now between the radical Islamic regime in Khartoum and South Sudan. So we're trying to send some of these folks back and help take care of them here in Israel, give them lodging and jobs and food and things while they're here as a way station. But they came to Israel because they saw it as a beacon of light and freedom from the persecution, not only in Sudan, but even that they felt in Egypt. They got beat up on the streets for wearing crosses.
Now, you're involved in Aliyah. What is Aliyah?
Aliyah is the return of the Jewish people to their ancient homeland. And of course, with the fall of the Soviet Union in 1989, there have been more than 1 million Russian-speaking Jews returned to Israel over the last 18, 19 years, and we've helped over 100,000 of them get here, so about 10% of this mass aliyah from the former Soviet Union. At some point, the Christian Embassy was involved. It includes, we just chartered our 59th flight, Aliyah flight, bringing Jews home. And one of the people on board was actually from Sweden, a Jew who has felt intimidated by the rising anti-Semitism there. Israel just played in a Davis Cup match in this town called Malmo, where there's a large Muslim community, and the protests against the Israeli team turned violent, and she says it's time to go home.
How easy is it for someone coming out into Israel to actually settle down into Israel?
Well, everyone sort of has to make their adjustment, and just as America was a melting pot for so many different nationalities, these are Jewish people, but they come from 100 countries around the world, speaking 100 languages and eating 100 different kinds of foods and cultures, but somehow Israel has been able to blend. There's been a unity. I think their shared history of trying to follow the Lord as best they can, and the persecution, the things they've been through, learning the Hebrew language once they're back here. There have been things that they've been able to unite around to become a sovereign nation here again in the land of their forefathers.
Well, the Bible talks about helping widows and orphans, and one thing you've been doing is helping the orphans. What have you been doing there?
We have been helping Jewish orphans that the Jewish Agency brings here, and helping them get settled in the land. There's all sorts of dental care, things like this. We even have been for years helping feed Jewish orphans. Some of them, like we found them living in underground tunnels and sewer tunnels in St. Petersburg, living on the streets. And so, you have a heart for the widows, the orphans. We help unwed mothers. We help Holocaust survivors, the gamut of folks that we're trying to help in the land. We're just trying to reach the needy and show them a different face of Jesus than the Jewish people have seen before.
And you have a program called Grafted In, helping the youth. What's that about?
Grafted is our young adults division. It's a special program that brings tours here to Israel for young people from 18 to 30, and you'll have not only a tour of the land, but you'll get sort of current affairs briefings, fun things to do, rafting down the Jordan, camel riding, jeep riding in the desert, and also a hands-on service component where you're out there helping at a soup kitchen in Jerusalem. We have street ministry in the old city to the Arabs. We clean the homes of elderly Christian Arabs. We go to Bethlehem and help there. So it's, trying to reach on both sides of the divide here and be a good practical hands-on ministry to all the people of the land. It's really a nice opportunity for young Christian adults.
Now, every September, many, many people come to the land for the Feast of Tabernacles, and you're involved in the Feast of Tabernacles in a very big way. What do you actually do?
I help coordinate the media, and I set up some of the seminars and arrange speakers, helping to organize some of it. But our Feast of Tabernacles celebration, that we were born out of that first one in 1980. Since then, it's grown to become the largest annual tourist event in Israel. We had 8,000 pilgrims from around 100 countries last year. And it was quite an amazing show of Christians from all over the world. We had 1,500 Brazilians, and they're threatening to bring 3,000 next year. This year it'll be in early October, and we're going to have Paul Wilbur as a special guest. We'll have anointed speakers. It's a rich, dynamic worship experience. Very anointed Bible teachers. And then the most popular event is when you can go join the Jerusalem March, marching through the streets of Jerusalem to express your love for the Jewish people.
How easy is it putting together a program like that?
Well, Israel, life can be thick sometimes, but we've had experience of almost 30 years, and this will be our 30th feast, so we have enough veterans around to make sure everything's getting set up. But it is a major administrative challenge, and registering pilgrims in all these different languages, making sure they have headsets, and just trying to make sure everyone has accommodations and knows the schedule. So it is a logistical challenge.
What's it like for you personally living here in the land?
Well, I've been here living on staff with the Christian Embassy, living in Jerusalem since 1997. I first came to Israel in 1982, so I've got a long connection with the land. And because I feel called here, this is home. I miss my family back home from a coastal resort, the Outer Banks of North Carolina. It's very lovely there, but it's quite a privilege to be called to Jerusalem and to serve where I am.
What difficulties do you face as someone who actually comes here into the land?
Well, there's the difficulty of the language, of course. I'm an American. I'm not that good at foreign languages. My wife is from Holland. She speaks 7 languages, but I'm not so good at it. But there's enough people in Jerusalem who speak English that you can get by. Our work language here at the embassy is English, but culturally and whatever. But I've been here enough years now to know what the sensitivities are and how to fit in, and it's actually quite an amazing city and country, the mix of all these Jewish people from all over the world, and the way east meets west. You can turn the corner here and you go from Western developed world into the Orient, that some people still riding donkeys and camels. So it's quite interesting and fascinating and never dull.
Yeah. Now you work in the media department of the Christian Embassy. What sort of things do you do there?
We have a daily news service by email, goes out to subscribers for free all over the world, just compiling a daily summary of the news here. We have a weekly radio program ourselves, like you, where we have a radio show to produce, and that's on about 150 Christian stations in North America, the Salem Network, and on websites as well. It's called frontpagejerusalem.com. And we have 2 monthly magazines we're involved in, the Word from Jerusalem, which is a flagship publication of the Christian Embassy to our membership worldwide, and then we're also partners with the Jerusalem Post to produce a monthly magazine for Christians that's called the Jerusalem Post Christian Edition.
And what's your prayer for the land here, for Israel, for Jerusalem itself?
Well, I pray that this people would remember their God and would seek Him as a people, as a nation. I think that God has divinely appointed a moment where they will collectively come before Him. I think there's a certain pattern of return to the land that, you have to, like in the days of Nehemiah, you come building up the land with a trowel in one hand but a sword in the other to protect yourself. But at some point under Nehemiah, the people came together as one and repented for what got them kicked out in the first place. And I think if the nation would humble itself, would realize it's just not the IDF protecting them, that God is, that there was a reason they were exiled for so long and they're back here, and that the whole nation would acknowledge the God who called them, who has brought them back in a time of favor. And I think amazing things would happen if they did.
And finally, you have a website. What's your website for people who'd like to know more?
Our embassy website is www.icej.org. And again, the radio is www.frontpagejerusalem.com.
Okay, David, thank you very much.
Thank you. Shalom.